Why is it so hard for so many of us to say no or do it again? Imagine this. You call a plumber because your sink is leaking. He spends 30 minutes fixing it. When he's done, the water still doesn't drain properly. What do many people do? They say, "Yeah, it's better. Thanks." Pay him and close the door. How many of you find it uncomfortable to ask someone to completely redo their work? How many of you feel guilty saying no to a salesperson who has already spent 15 minutes showing you products? How many of you eat a meal that isn't great in a restaurant because you don't want to send it back? These days, for some people, it can even look like this. You ask an AI to create something. You get the result back. It's close, but not what you actually need. Instead of asking for a proper redo, you start softening your feedback, adding small suggestions, and eventually settle for good enough. You might even feel guilty asking a soulless machine to redo it. But it's not just about services. You go along with a plan your friend suggests, even though it doesn't really work for you. You don't push back in a group project when something is clearly low quality. You keep using a service you're not happy with because canceling feels awkward. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. This is a very common pattern, avoiding small conflicts in exchange for short-term comfort. What's actually going on? This isn't just being polite. In most cases, it's conflict avoidance. And it usually comes from a few underlying factors. First, there's fear of negative reaction. At some level, you expect that if you say, "This isn't good enough," the other person will get defensive, annoyed, or difficult, so you avoid the situation entirely. Second, overweighting other people's effort. Someone already spent time on the task, and it feels wrong to reject the result. You treat their effort as something that must be rewarded, even if the outcome doesn't meet your needs. Third, projection. If you personally don't like being criticized, you assume others will feel the same way, so you hold back to avoid causing that discomfort. And finally, social conditioning. Many people were taught that being easy to deal with is the same as being a good person. Directness gets labeled as rudeness, even when it's necessary. What does this actually cost you? At first glance, it feels like you're avoiding a problem. In reality, you're just delaying and redistributing it. You lose money by paying for work that doesn't meet the requirement. You lose time by fixing things yourself later or working around bad results. You degrade feedback loops. People think their work is acceptable, so nothing improves. And you reinforce a bad habit, training yourself to tolerate almost okay, instead of asking for what you actually need. This isn't about self-esteem or morality. It's about efficiency and accuracy. If you don't correct the output, the system doesn't improve, whether that system is a person, a service, or an AI. So what can you do differently? The goal is not to become aggressive. The goal is to become clear and predictable. Here are a few techniques that actually make this easier. 1. Set expectations up front. At the very beginning, say something like, "If it's not exactly what I need, I may ask for a full redo. That's part of the process." This removes ambiguity before any work is done and reduces your own hesitation later. 2. Signal honesty early. With salespeople or service providers. I'll be direct if something doesn't work for me. This makes your later no consistent instead of abrupt. 3. Separate effort from outcome. A simple rule: effort is appreciated. Outcome is evaluated. You can acknowledge the work without accepting the result. I see the effort, but this doesn't solve the problem yet. 4. Use clear, neutral language. Most people struggle not with the decision, but with phrasing. Here are examples that are direct without being aggressive. "This isn't quite what I need. Let's redo it from scratch." "This is close, but not usable in its current form." "I don't think this approach works." Let's try a different direction. Thanks for the work, but we're not there yet. No over-apologizing. No long justifications. 5. Start with low-stakes practice. If this feels uncomfortable, practice in situations where the cost is low, for example, with AI or minor service interactions. The point is not that these are identical to real-life conflicts, but that they help you get used to one key idea. Nothing catastrophic happens when you're clear. One important detail: even if you do everything right, the other person might still feel uncomfortable or react negatively. That's normal. Clarity doesn't guarantee a pleasant reaction. It just guarantees that the problem is addressed instead of ignored. Being polite and being convenient are not the same thing. If something isn't right, saying it clearly once is usually less harmful, for both sides, than pretending it's fine and carrying the consequences. Start small. The next time you're about to accept almost okay, pause and ask yourself, would I choose this result if I were deciding from scratch? If the answer is no, say so, and be done with it. If this resonated with you, drop a comment and tell me, which situation is hardest for you, asking for a redo or saying no to a salesperson? Thank you for listening. If you think this was useful, hit like and subscribe.